Morning guys, welcome back to the channel. We are going to take a minute here and we're going to try to split this apart. I've tried to shoot this video 3 or 4 times and it keeps creeping up on 20 minutes and I know that from the 2021 season with the videos, a lot of folks want to get more in-depth and get your hands dirty, right? Get right to the point and less talk and more learning. So that's what I'm trying to bring to the plate this year in 2022 for you guys here on the channel. That more direct approach and kind of no BS. Let's get right to the bottom and be able to help you guys, teach you guys and give you guys some learning material. So we're going to break this actually into a couple of videos, guys. So you'll see the same layout, but we're gonna talk about a couple of different things on this. So today, what we're going to talk about, guys, is this. We're going to talk about why one sanctuary doesn't work. You've all seen that. It's a typical, I see it a lot in the north and the northeast, especially the state of Michigan. Wisconsin is another one where it seems like further south I go, I don't run into this as much. But Michigan, Wisconsin, if you're tuning in from that area, this will resonate with you. Why one sanctuary doesn't work. A typical 40-acre property, and we like to use square 40s when we illustrate here, guys, is because it kind of gives folks some good realistic expectations or generates with a lot of folks on a lot of those old timber areas where it is 40-acre square chunks. Typical 40 acres with a 10-acre sanctuary that is given to the deer, that nobody goes into. The kids aren't allowed to go in there, grandkids aren't allowed to go in there. That's deer and deer only. You don't go in there during the summer. You don't go in there and you don't do anything. You don't sneeze around it. Heaven forbid that you have to go in there for any reason, even to track a deer, right? It's a deer and deer only area. Well, there's a huge problem with that you'll learn through this channel if you stick with me here. That can be a huge and detrimental problem to your 40 or to any property that you're tuning in from. So what we're going to do here is we're going to illustrate. I see this a lot, guys. Let's take a 10-acre parcel of the property, and we actually put this up into the farthest away from the camp or farthest away in the back corner. UP of Michigan's typical for this. Let's push this back here, and sometimes it's a spruce, cedar, maybe there's a little swamp in there, and we push the deer back in that corner and we just kind of block that off, and we say no one enters. You can see that no ATV trails around it, nothing goes in there. Most of the time this is what happens, guys. So before we go down the idea of putting a food plot or talking about plots or anything like that, we're just talking on this one why one sanctuary doesn't work. The typical sanctuary that folks lay in here, spruce, cedar, left alone, is in front of your hunting, in front of all of this funnel or this anticipation that a doe is going to magically bring a buck behind her out into this food plot in a high pressured state. And maybe that'll work in Iowa, maybe that works in Illinois, maybe that works in Kansas, but if you want, maybe it works in Michigan, maybe it's once every 5 years or once every 2 or 3 years you get lucky and that happens. I'm not saying that there's not areas of Michigan or Wisconsin that are less pressure and maybe your neighbors don't hurt, maybe or hunt, and maybe this doesn't happen every 5 years. Maybe you get lucky and you can draw a buck out of there or out to the open food plot every 2 to 3 years. And if you can, that's great. If you're shooting 3.5-year-old deer, but that's great too in your area. But what I'm telling you is, guys, this happens time and time again. And when I'm there putting boots on the ground and we really go in and start researching it, this bedding area is not as powerful as those folks think it is when you set it aside and you do nothing with it. In order for a bedding area, now work along with me here. This is a training tool that I've been putting on here. When we say bedding, this is bedding, and we like I said, no pressure in there. Folks set this aside, and if it is spruce, you get a lot of grasses growing in there. Maybe you get some forbs, but you don't have any woody browse. And like the state of Michigan and Wisconsin, 90%, up to 90% of a deer's intake is woody browse. It blows people's mind, but it's the raw truth. You've heard me say that about your food plots and stuff. If you don't have the browse that backs them, your plots are only as good as the browse that backs them. That's the reason why. Is that it really is 85-90% of a deer's intake is woody browse. So if there's nothing growing in here, you've just given 10 acres of the property away, and it's a pipe dream that hopefully something is going to a doe is going to draw a buck out into there, especially, you know, during the pre-rut or a gun season. You know, the state of Michigan, November 15th. You know, Wisconsin, you know, maybe around Thanksgiving is a big time and stuff like that, guys. It's a wish and it's a hope and a pray that a lot of times doesn't come true. We've all been there. We've all sat in the blinds getting towards dark. We're waiting for that last 15 minutes of daylight. The does finally make their way to the food plot, if there is any does there at all, and they make their way to the food plot and nothing shows up behind it. So now we're going to talk about this in a separate video, but now you got to get out of the blind and maybe you spook them, and it's just a chain that stretches your season out 90 days, when maybe you could, you know, pinch that down into maybe 5 days of a weekend hunt when the weather's good or something like that. So back to the sanctuary here. You know, a lot of folks I've got these purple lines in here. Folks go in and they mow trails through it, maybe, if they do anything in it. A lot of people don't go in it at all, but mow trails and kind of make this, think they're making a diverse bedding pocket in there, and giving them, well, you have 10 acres of it that you've just given to the does, and it's not really the sanctuary that you believe it is. So, and the reason I'm saying this, guys, is because, like I said, I do this for a living, and I get to walk on more properties than most folks get to see in a lifetime. I'm on per year. And when we go into these areas, and sometimes it's trying to pull teeth. It's like, oh, I don't want to go in there even in the summer or in the habitat season. So after some explaining, you have to the folks, we have to know what's going on in there, and now's the time to do it. If you blow deer out of there in the summer, it has no relation to do to the fall. They will be back. Let's go in there and find out. Well, we go in there, guys, and they're thinking that they're going to walk in. Oh my God, there's going to be deer everywhere. In about 10 minutes of walking it, I can see people scratching their beards like that. You know, I can see big size. I can see, like, this. I've been sitting here watching this or hoping for this whole time, and there's been nothing in here. There's no beds in there. If there is, I'm not going to say maybe there's not. Maybe there is a little, you know, a little browse in there because of some sunlight pockets that hit it, but there's nothing in there growing. And your deer, your does in a doe bedding area have to have browse. They have to have, you know, they feed 4 to 5 times in a 24-hour period, 3 of which are internal of their bedding. And if that browse requirement isn't enough to reach in there, it's not going to hold. So you may get a family group or that gets pressured or something in there, and they stick to this, and they kind of get used to you bumping them off the plot, whatever the case is. You know, we're talking a few. We're talking 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 does or in does and fawns combos. But who wants to own 40 acres and take and narrow it down to one buck, semi-mature buck in most areas, getting you know, kind of lazy and chasing a doe out into a food plot, and we sit there all season and make that happen? There's so much more that you can build on a property, and so much more that you can expect from a property if you kind of do some reverse psychology here against the typical 40 acres that is in the north or the northeast that's built time and time and time again. And I mean, it's not just up there, but like we said, we see more of them up there. So let's take this idea, and we're not going to go into food plots and timber and all that stuff that I got added to here, pressure and everything, but let's just take this sanctuary idea, and let's transfer down here to what I feel is a better built buck cruising 40, a better way to experience the pre-rut in the rut for a buck cruising aspect, so you can see more. 40 acres. We are trying to build a core of 50. When I design a property, I'm trying to build a core for you of 50% or more of a property. Near that 50% mark of a 40 gets you 20 acres, or near, maybe it's 18, maybe it's 22, maybe it's 25. We are trying to shoot for that amount of core. Well, we've already built more acreage of core in deer and deer only than you've had in the past, thinking that you had 10 acres of sanctuary that really wasn't the sanctuary that you thought it was. And by doing this, putting just a simple design, in-depth design, but simple thought process into it, and taking advantage of, you know, someone such as myself that does this for a living, and reaching out and really helping, or taking the advice from this channel and doing it yourself. And if you're doing that, guys, kudos to you. That's great. Keep soaking in this free information, because what happens is the more that I either do, or the more that you do yourselves out there, when you go to an area, you come to my area to hunt, you know that the area is better. When I go to your area to hunt, whether it's your farm or not, obviously your area in general, we know that there's more correct habitat being built, and we're all benefiting from this. So we go into this better built buck cruising areas. So what we're seeing here, guys, is we're laying this transition. The most important thing, one of the most important things I do on a build is laying the transition out, and you can see all these amenities that we put, the food plots on the transition. Your screening on the outside to make sure that you can get past. You can see we pulled the blinds. Here we've got 3 stands, and that's typical on a 40 when I go into it. That's an average stand amount or stand assemblage or stand arsenal that you have on a property. That's usually the amount when I get there. Now you can see we've got 6 to 8 stands on a 40, maybe more with box blinds, but they're exterior. First of all, they're exterior. We're building the core. We're putting all these amenities. Instead of having a 10-acre core, guys, this is what you have. Not only do you have 20 acres of core, of a core that's deer and deer only. So everything from your transition area in is what we label and what we designate as the core. So that includes your food plots. That includes your doe bedding areas. That includes all your potential. These yellow dots in here are buck bedding pockets we're going to talk about later. All of these relate to the core. So not only do you have 20 acres, in my opinion, you have 20 acres, and then you might have a half acre here that's habitat improved. This half acre might have, which clones your food plots, this half acre might have more correct habitat and value to those deer than this here. So you take the 5 deer that may have been in here, you place these 5 here, you put 5 or 6 more here, you put 5 or 6 more here. Now, guys, what we're doing is now on a 40-acre piece, now we're talking about 15 residential does instead of 5, maybe 5 up here that come and go, that this really isn't the holding power. Now I can guarantee you that if you go the extra mile and we really design and treat this the way it needs to be treated, you can actually stick more deer in a 40-acre core, a core of a 40 acres around that 20-acre mark than you'll ever promote by just setting 10 acres aside and letting it go back to brush, hoping and praying that 10, maybe 20 years down the road that all this successional growth that you just kind of let grow and hope that it grows back wild is really doing what you're hoping that it's doing in there. Guys, this is the realistic, honest truth. I've been on 40 acres that folks have owned for 25 years. 25 years in northern Michigan, and if I'll tell you the areas, and if the folks are watching this up in the Michigan area on off from M55 around Wellston, there's a couple up there that I've owned the property for 25 years and have never set foot in that 10-acre property. They had no idea what was in there. They were hoping and praying that it was held deer. They'd never been in there in the off season. They'd never been in there in the summer. They had never promoted that area, and time again. And they had a few, 2.5-year-old bucks on the wall. It's going to happen. You're going to get lucky. The goal here is when I set foot on these properties for you guys is to take the luck factor out. We all need to be lucky, right? But take that down. Take a 90-day season, shrink it into a 4 or 5 day productive weekend that we all take our time and our valuable time away from work, and put it into something like this where you can obviously see 10 acres out the window, put it into 20 acres of a core. Not only is it 20, you've got another half here, you've got another half here, maybe you've got another 4 or 5 acres. Now, before we know it, maybe you're creeping up on 60% of a property is a valuable core with correct habitat. And it's not a bunch of work. It's not a bunch of rocket science. The problem with this is, guys, is this: if you build your property on this and you continue to do this, on one of the next videos here, we're going to talk about food plot strategies and placements. And you put these in here and you spray this plot, and it's 2 acres. It seems like 2 acres. I don't know why, but it seems like 2 or 3 acres is the holy grail of food plots, all in one location. You put that in there, you spray it, and it kills everything off there. Now, when we go in and we try to change this, we change this after 20 years or 10 years of this mentality being there, and we got a water source that costs you money to build. Or maybe it was the native, but anyway, in the interior we've got a water source in the interior that we have to worry about. We've got an area up here that we have to there's nothing growing on, so we got to mulch, or we got to go in and we got to plant, get some of the spruce out of it, or the cedars out of it. We got to put more switch into it. We got to create more. We have to put it back into production. So now you can see that it's a huge building process to fix and hopefully create and get this back to grow when it's been soaked with chemicals for years. This is the first step of this, guys. Like I said, we're going to use this illustration on a couple videos here, but this is the number one, or why a one sanctuary setup on a property doesn't work most of the time, when you could turn that 10 acres into more valuable on a 40, build more valuable of 20 acres or more in a very simple fashion and form, and be more productive during the peak time of the year when we all want to be in the woods, taking advantage of that cruising buck mentality. Thanks, guys.